Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. UK Q2 GDP registers its worst contraction in its history. Analysis http ntvforex.com News ID 5457B1812 2020 am Notes Observations UK Q2 GDP registered its deepest recession on record, but monthly June reading paints a picture of optimism. Ending of furloughing subsidies in October remain a concern for employment. Talks between Democrats and Republicans over another round of pandemic-related fiscal stimulus said to have stalled. Trump's executive orders seem to have eased some concerns about the U.S. economy. Asia New Zealand Central Bank left official cash rate OCR unchanged at 0.25% as expected, but increased the size and duration of its QE bond buying program. RBNZ Gov Orr stressed that the recent Auckland virus lockdown did not affect policy decision. New Zealand PM Ardern noted that the dissolution of Parliament to be delayed, but no decision on delaying September 19 election. China Vice Foreign Min stated that the coming months are crucial in U.S.-China relations, needed to keep relations on the right track. China banking sector said to crack down on the use of personal credit cards for speculation related to the equity and real estate markets. Pro-democracy Hong Konger Jimmy Lai has been freed on bail as expected from Aug. 11th coronavirus total global cases 20,223,306 1.0% DD total deaths 740.3 K 0.7% DD Russia claimed to have developed a vaccine for COVID-19 amid concerns about whether trials were rushed. Europe UK Chancellor of the Exchequer Sunak Fin said top consider postponing the fall budget announcement if the UK is hit by a second wave of COVID. America's Democratic Party candidate Joe Biden announced Senator Kamala Harris as his running mate for the November 3 U.S. election. U.S. Senate Majority Leader McConnell Democrats treating coronavirus pandemic as political game, with relief talks still stalled. While House COVID-19 relief bill negotiators did not speak to the top Democrats in Congress on Tuesday. Yesterday, stalemate needed to end. Canada PM Trudeau continue to have full confidence in Fin Morneau, and any statement to the contrary is false. Energy Weekly API crude oil inventories 4.4 MV 8.6 M prior. NBSP speakers fixed income FX commodities Iratum equities indices STOXX 6000 0.25% at 371.68, FTSE 0.76% at 6201.29. DAX 0.16% at 12,924.30, CAC 40 0.22% at 5,039.66, IBEX 35 0.20% at 7,278.00, FTSE MIB 0.44% at 20,298.50, SME 0.44% 10,197.50, S&P 500 futures 0.91%. Market focal points. Key themes. European indices open modestly lower, the FTSE 100 being the exception, later moving to mixed as the session wore on. Increase in COVID cases in Europe blamed for loss of risk appetite. Better performing sectors lead by telecom and financials. Underperforming sectors include consumer discretionary and materials. Liberty Global launches takeover of Sunrise Communications. Acre Solution places spin-off shares. Earnings expected in the upcoming U.S. session include Brinker International, Arcos Dorados and Enersys. NBSP Equities Consumer Discretionary ASOS ASC.UK 6% trading update, Just Eat Takeaway JET.UK 3.5% earnings. Utilities E.on EOA and .de 1.5% earnings. Industrials Leone LEO.de 7% earnings. Technology Avast AVST.UK 4% earnings. Telecom Sunrise Communications SRCG.ch 26% to be acquired. Freenet FNTN.de 17% sells stake. NBSP speakers. UK Chancellor of the Exchequer Sunak Fin reiterated government stance that extending Brexit transition period beyond December 31 is not the right thing to do. Must prepare for all eventualities on Brexit. Domestic economy was in hard times. Difficult choices to be made, but would get through this. noted that growth of 8.7% in GDP in June was encouraging. Poland's central bank's Kropnicki Hawk 2020 CPI could reach 4.05%. Area Russia Health Min to begin producing the COVID-19 vaccine within 2 weeks. China Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Jian US TikTok ban had nothing to do with national security. US sanctions were irrational and groundless. China said to discuss agricultural goods and CNY currency yuan in upcoming US-China discussions planned for August 15. China to bring up WeChat. TikTok issues NBSP currencies. Fixed income USD saw some initial support as the session began as spot gold tested a 4-week low. Dealers cited rising real yields as the cause of the price action. The continued stalemate on US stimulus talks cited as a headwind for the greenback. A slew of UK data released in the session showed the country was in its worst recession in history, but improvement in monthly data was taking the sting out of the GDP contraction. GBP USD little changed at 1.3050 area. Headwinds remain as markets watch effects of the ending of furloughing subsidies in October and a move towards Brexit by year-end. Hopes of a V-shape recovery look hard to swallow. Euro USD recovered from session lows of 1.1711 to probe back in the middle of the handle. NBSP economic data. UK June monthly GDP 8.7% v 8.0% UK Q2 preliminary GDP QQ 20.4% v 20.7% EYY 21.7% v 22.3% UK Q2 preliminary private consumption QQ 23.1% v 18.9% e-government spending QQ 14.0% v 0.7% e-gross fixed capital formation QQ 25.5% v 27.8% e-exports QQ 11.3% v 21.5% e-imports QQ 23.4% v 23.9% e-UK Q2 preliminary total business investment QQ 31.4% v 30.0% EYY 31.3% v 0.8% prior. UK June industrial production 9.3% v 9.0% EYY 12.5% v 13.1% UK June manufacturing production 11.0% v 10.0% EYY 14.6% v 15.0% EA UK June construction output 23.5% v 15.0% EYY 24.8% v 29.5% UK June index of services 7.7% v 8.0% E3M 19.9% v 20.7% UK June visible trade balance A 5.1 BVA 4.5B overall trade balance A 5.3 BVA 2.6B trade balance non-EU A 0.3 BVA 0.7B no Norway Q2 average monthly earnings YY 4.2% v 3.5% prior RO Romania July CPI 0.0% v 0.0% EYY 2.8% v 2.8% EJP Japan July preliminary machine tool orders YY 31.1% v 32.1% prior SE Sweden July CPI 0.2%. v 0.1% EYY 0.5% v 0.3% eCPI level 337.57 v 336.60 ESE Sweden July CPI FMM 0.2% v 0.1% EYY 0.5% v 0.2% ESE Sweden July CPI FX Energy 0.4% v 0.0% EYY 1.5% v 1.2% EIT Italy July final CPI 0.2% v 0.1% prelim YY 0.4% v 0.3% prelim CPI index X tobacco 102.3 v 102.4 prior IT Italy July final CPI EU harmonized 0.7% v 0.6% prelim YY 0.8% v 0.9% prelim EU Eurozone June industrial production 9.1% v 10.0% EYY 12.3% v 11.6% E fixed income issuance in India sold total INR 350 BVS. INR 350B indicated in 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month bills. DK Denmark sold total DKK 4.4B in 3-month, 6-month and 9-month bills. Italy debt agency Tesoro sold total A 7.0B versus A 7.0B indicated in 12-month bills. Average yield 0.192% v 0.124% prior. Bid to cover 1.74x v 1.48x prior. SE Sweden sold total 5.0 billion Swedish kronor versus 5.0 billion Swedish kronor indicated in 2026 and 2031 bonds. UK DMO sold a 2.75B in 0.125% January 2028 gilts. Average yield 0.151% v 0.045% prior. Bid to cover 2.88x v 2.15x prior. Tail 0.2 bps v 0.3 bps prior. NBSP looking ahead 0530 ZA South Africa July Sachs I Business Confidence 0530 to Germany to sell a 4.0B in 0% August 2030 bonds. 0530 ZA South Africa announces details of next bond auction held on Tuesdays. 0600 IL Israel July trade balance no ESTV $1.5 billion prior. 0600 PT Portugal July final CPI no ESTV 1.3% prelim YY no ESTV 0.2% prelim. 0600 PT Portugal July final CPI EU harmonized no ESTV 2.0% prelim YY no ESTV 0.0% prelim. 0600 RU Russia to sell OFZ bonds. 0645 US daily LIBOR fixing 0700 US MBA mortgage applications WE August 7 no ESTV 5.1% prior. 0700 ZA South Africa June retail sales 10.0% EV 74.2% prior. YY 5.0% EV 12.0% prior. 0700 UK weekly PM question time in-house 0800 BR Brazil June retail sales 5.0% EV 13.9% prior. YY 2.8% EV 7.2% prior. 0800 BR Brazil June broad retail sales 6.7% EV 19.6% prior. YY 4.0% EV 14.9% prior. 0800 UK daily Baltic dry bulk index 0830 US July CPI 0.3% EV 0.6% prior. YY 0.7% EV 0.6% prior. 0830 US July CPI ex food energy 0.2% EV 0.2% prior. YY 1.1% EV 1.2% prior. 0830 US July CPI index NSA 258.540 EV 257.797 prior. CPI core index SA 266.585 EV 266.065 prior. 0830 US July real average hourly earning YY no ESTV 4.3% prior. Real average weekly earnings YY no ESTV 4.6% prior. 0845 UK Bow to buy a 1.473B in APF gilt purchase operation 720 years 10:00 US Fed S. Rosengren discusses on economy 10:30 US weekly dough oil inventories 11:00 US Fed S. Kaplan speaks to Lubbock Chamber of Commerce 12:00 CA Canada to sell 2-year bonds 13:00 U.S. Treasury to sell 10-year notes 13:00 MX Mexico July total formal job creation no ESTV 83.3K prior 14:00 U.S. July monthly budget statement $137.5 BV $864.1 billion prior 15:00 AR Argentina June capacity utilization no ESTV 46.4% prior 15:00 U.S. Fed S. Daily speaks with the Economic Club of Las Vegas 18:45 NZ New Zealand July food prices no ESTV 0.5% prior 19:01 UK July RICS house price balance no ESTV 15% prior 19:50 JP Japan July PPI 0.4% EV 0.6% prior YY 1.1% EV 1.6% prior 19:50 JP Japan Q2 housing loans YY no ESTV 2.6% prior 2100 Australia AUG Consumer Inflation Expectation Survey no ESTV 3.2% prior 2110 JPBOJ Outright Bond Purchase Operation FOR 1 3 years 3 5 years and 5 10 years maturities 2130 Australia July Employment Change 25.0 KV 2 10.8 prior Unemployment Rate 7.8% EV 7.4% prior full-time employment change no ESTV 38.1 prior part-time employment change no ESTV 249.0 prior participation rate 64.4% EV 64.0% prior 2300 KR South Korea June M2 Money Supply M no ESTV 1.2% prior L Money Supply M no ESTV 0.9% prior. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me mt5.expert.advisors.